No? Namaste and a very warm welcome to the second episode of COVID Care series by Apollo Experts. Today we have Dr. Rajiv Paul, internal medicine physician and intensivist at Apollo Hospitals. He has about 20 years of experience in this field. Today he's going to talk about COVID management at home versus hospital. Over to you, Dr. Rajiv.
Thank you, Dr. Padma. As we are going through this second wave of the pandemic, and which has been more serious and more severe wave, and actually now we're calling it a wall, the number of patients have been increasing in the last few weeks. It is no more a wave, it is a wall. Numbers are just rising. And along with the rising numbers, there's a lot of panic which has set in. Majority is because of lot of data being coming through the WhatsApp and other social media channels, which are giving some sort of a different perspective to the whole disease. Many people resort to such media and such information as the only source of information. And because of that, they're panicking, rushing to hospitals, taking all sorts of irrational treatment, and leading to more complications and putting a very serious stress on the healthcare system. Just put in short, the second wave was expected. It was not that it was not expected. Every country has or is going through a second wave, and it is not that the second wave is because we have now got a very more potent or a more deadly virus, but major part has been because of some mutant viruses and also because of our complete lack of social etiquette of social distancing and masking that we followed in the last few months. So this second wave, which we are seeing, and right now that we are in the peak, peaking towards the peak of the second wave, is basically to be managed with a little bit of help from the community as well as from the medical fraternity. We as doctors are under intense stress, both physical and mental, because of the number of patients that we see every day, the number of exposures that each doctors have, the nurses, the healthcare staff. Everyone is exposed to a lot of viral exposures to patients, exposures to patient families. Along with that, the continuous work stress is also so that can in the long term lead to a breakdown of the healthcare system. Today's talk is basically to make you understand that though there is a increase in the number of cases that we are seeing and the number of mortality which you are seeing on a reported mean increase, we should not go into a panic mode. Our protocol should be very clear, and we should not just treat based on some arbitrary protocols on just go to land up in hospitals with even mild symptoms and put a pressure on the healthcare system. Randomly testing oneself for COVID-19 without any symptoms also will lead to more pressure on the healthcare system. So to help us understand on how to manage this second wave, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences yesterday has come out with a very brief and very nice protocol, which can be of help to many of the people out there, to the medical fraternity as well as the common people, understanding that this disease is not that it is a severe in every case. To put in very short, most of the cases of COVID are mild. Few are asymptomatic, but most are mild. I mean, 9 out of 10 times you would be mild symptoms and you would not even require a hospitalization. But many of these 9 patients would actually land up with will consult a doctor, go to a hospital and want for admission. It's absolutely unnecessary. To put in very short, do not panic if you have got COVID, number 1. Do not rush to the hospital just because you have some sore throat. Do not go out of your house and go to multiple centers for getting yourself tested and getting others infected just because you have some sore throat symptoms. So most cases of this sore throat will be mild COVID and will be passing off or with very mild symptoms in a week's time. And you will just recover with better health in a week or 2 weeks' time. So to help you understand this, this is what mild disease, the All Indian Institute has come up with a very simple definition of a mild disease, which means you have some upper respiratory symptoms. Upper respiratory symptoms could be most commonly what we are seeing is a dry cough, some sore throat, little bit feverish feeling, and maybe running nose for a few cases. A combination of this would be considered to be an upper respiratory symptoms. Upper respiratory means the nose, throat. So any symptoms in the nose, running nose, in the throat pain, some throat irritation, some mild cough, itchiness in the throat, some vague light headache, more body pains, maybe feverish feeling or a low-grade fever. All this would indicate a upper respiratory or mild disease. This basically does not require you to just land up in the hospital and consult a doctor. You will be very well isolating yourself at home. You should do we should do a COVID testing. You should basically maintain what is called contact droplet precautions and strict hand hygiene. Best option is to isolate yourself at home and get a COVID testing done. And keep yourself well hydrated. Take some paracetamol tablets. It's easily available of the counter of the prescription. You can get a prescription of paracetamol. And if you have a cough, you can take some cough suppressions in consultation with your doctor online. So this is basically a self-limiting disease to be understood most of the times. So you just need to stay at home. If you're tested positive, you have some mild symptoms, you don't have any breathing difficulty, neither you are able to do all your activities without much discomfort. You just have some sore throat, some low-grade fever, headache, body pains, maybe a runny nose. You're tested positive, just isolate yourself in a room. Try to be in minimum contact with other family members. Take some paracetamol tablets, take some cough suppressants, and keep yourself well hydrated. Keep on drinking and eating well, and keep yourself relaxed. In 4 or 5 days' time or a week's time, things will all subside. However, be in touch with a physician, and if you develop any difficulty in breathing, or you develop any fever which is persisting more than 5 days, which is more than 101, and more than 5 days now fever continues, you should then is when we talk of consulting or physician or going to the hospital. So if your fever continues more than 5 days to 7 days, and it's not it is pretty 101 or more, and you're having some difficulty in breathing, and also suggestion is to check your pulse oximeter. So when you are in the home isolation, pulse oximeter is very easy available. Most every pharmaceutical shop can get you one. Keep your pulse oximeter checking, and if your pulse oximeter numbers show a dropping trend, so then that's when you will require to go to the hospital. So indications for going to hospital will be difficulty in breathing, your pulse oximeter saturation showing less than 95%, or you're having fever which is continuous going up more than 5 days onwards, and you're not able to do your basic activities like going to the washroom and having a bath, you feel breathless. That's when you need to come to the hospital. You can also take, if you're very mild symptoms, you can also take tablets ivermectin, which is recommended now, 200 microgram per kg per day. So for 3 to 5 days may be given, but not for pregnant females or lactating females. And if you have a mild cough, you can also use budesonide. One Budecort nebulization is available. Inhalers available in the market. You can use inhalers of budesonide, which is easily available. So, but that again, in discussion with your primary physician through a WhatsApp call or whatever platform you have to call your physician, that you should do it. So the takeaway message is home isolation for most cases. Staying at home, isolated yourself, taking simple medicines, paracetamol, some pain medications if you have headache, paracetamol, if you have fever, paracetamol, some cough suppressants, checking your pulse oximeter frequently, saturations are dropping to less than 50%, 95%, or you are continuously having high-grade fever for more than a week, 5 days to a week, or the cough is worsening, or you are feeling breathless, then you would consult your physician. So this is basically what, and the caregivers at home also should be taking care that whenever, suppose an old person is at home who is isolated, obviously the caregiver will have to go to the person's room and take care of the person. So a caregiver who is taking care of the person at home should definitely wear a mask when he or she is going to take care of the COVID positive patient. That is very important. So if you are a caregiver of a patient who is COVID positive, suppose it's your mother who is very old, she is not able to take care of her daily activities on her own. You need to go and take care of her. So the caregiver, you are the caregiver, you don't have COVID, but your mother has COVID. In such case, you have to, once you enter your mother's room, you have to take care of contact precautions. That is, you need to wear masks. Ideally, when you touch her, you should wear gloves, and those have to be disposed before you come out of the room. So mask has to be disposed outside, gloves you can dispose before you come out of the room. And ideally, you should maintain as much distance as possible when you are inside the room, and try to limit your number of time visiting the room. That is one way to prevent yourself getting infected. Now, this is the what about, and one more important thing: do not use home care remedies which WhatsApp media and WhatsApp are promoting. I mean, that may give you some relief, but they are not the treatment. Remember, as I told you, it is self-limiting disease. Taking medicines, taking Ayurvedic tablets or some sort of cocktails of various medicines, various preparations, tulsi and some preparations of turmeric and all these things may make you feel better, but that should not make you complacent. That okay, I've taken this, I should not consult a doctor, I should be staying at home. I'm taking kara, I'm taking tulsi, I'm taking something which my Ayurvedic doctors have told me. That should not make you complacent. If you're feeling breathless, you need to consult your physician immediately. If you come to the hospital, what the hospital will do for you, that's what's important to understand. If you come to the hospital, again, do not put a pressure on the healthcare system. Remember, the healthcare system right now is under tremendous stress. There are no beds available in most hospitals, and the hospital doctors, emergency doctors, ICU doctors, physicians, the pulmonologists, they're somehow managing patients, arranging patient beds and managing patients. So intense pressure on the hospital, for every hospital to get beds. Plus, there's intense pressure on drugs like remdesivir, drugs like tocilizumab, which have been used in the last 1 year for most COVID patients. And even the basic drug, oxygen. Oxygen also is actually a drug. So there's an intense pressure on these drugs, remdesivir, tocilizumab, and oxygen. Do not force your physician to and consulting and telling that my doctor, so and so doctor told me to start this drug or that drug. So there are protocols developed, which if each hospital has developed the protocols, centralized protocols are there, hospitals will follow their own protocols. You are not supposed to pressurize your doctor telling that my doctor, so and so doctor has told me that tocilizumab injection is must and should be given. Put in simple terms, there is no magic drug for COVID. That's one thing you have to understand. You will be treated based on your symptoms, your condition, your oxygen requirement, your general health status, what are the comorbidities that you have. Based on that, your treatment may vary from person to person. So at the same time, you should be understanding that the hospital will take enough care to see that you get better as quickly as possible. But still, there's no magic drug for this disease at present. So once you're in the hospital, your oxygen levels are low, that you maybe put on oxygen. And again, it's very clear that if your oxygen saturation is 96%, you should not be panicking. Oh, why it is not 98%. 96% is enough for normal activities. And there's no arbitrarily the number of my saturation is 98, it is not 100, it is 96. I should call my doctor, I should talk that. Those things, 96% saturation is enough for your treatment. And giving too much extra oxygen puts a system oxygen load on the system for too much oxygen requirement, and other patients who really need oxygen will be in short supply. Also, excess oxygen is toxic for the lungs in the long term. So, should not target arbitrary numbers that I need. My saturation should be 100% when I'm in the hospital. If it is 90 to 96%, that's more than enough. And the doctors may put you on plain oxygen or maybe putting you on a mask oxygen. In some cases, they may put you on something called non-invasive ventilation. That is when you get a little more sick or oxygen requirement goes high, you may be put on something called a high pressure oxygen, which is called non-breathing, non-invasive ventilation. What you need to do is to understand that along with oxygen therapy, you need to turn yourself or lie down on the prone position, that is lying on the bed on your belly, on your face down on the belly. This will improve your oxygen requirement very much. Your saturation will pick up and you require less oxygen if you're lying down on your belly, and that will help your breathing. You'll be more comfortable and oxygen requirement will come down. So try to do that as much as you can, as long as you can when in the hospital. You may also be given drugs like steroids. Doctors may give you based on your condition, based on your diabetic status, based on your other condition, they may give you some steroids, and also they may give you some other medications. Remdesivir also will be given to you. Remember, remdesivir is not a drug for treatment at home. If you are in home isolation, you are stable, you are not requiring oxygen, you are not breathless, remdesivir is not required most of the times. But if you are hospitalized, the doctor will start you on remdesivir, and which can be started up to 10 days from the starting of illness. Earlier started, the better it is. And the doctors will also give you something called Clexane, some injections which will basically anti-clotting injections, which will help you preventing clots, because this disease has shown to develop clots in multiple places of the body. So the anti-clotting injections doctors also will prescribe to you, and you will be monitored continuously. A CT scan also will be done, and once followed by X-rays. If any worsening, a repeat CT scan also may be done. Some cases, unfortunately, a very fraction of a patients may deteriorate. Those are the ones who will end up in ICU, and then they will be requiring what I was talking of, non-invasive ventilation, which will be given through a mask. The mask will be a little uncomfortable to start off with, but it is a life-saving measure. And initially, you may have little difficulty in adjusting, but it will, over time, you will feel more comfortable with the mask. It will improve your breathing comfort of your breathing, and deliver better oxygen to your lungs. Extreme cases, the doctors may put you on ventilator, put the patient on ventilator when none of the measures are working to reduce or increase the oxygen in the blood. And the steroid doses also in the ICU will be higher, along with some antibiotics, and some other drugs will be given, which will be also given as per the requirement. Tocilizumab also may be given in such conditions when the patients are deteriorating in the ICU, or patients are in the ward or on the verge of shifting to ICU because of deterioration, or shifted to ICU and then deteriorating there. The drug tocilizumab may be given. There are some other drugs also which can be given in that condition. Plasma is also given, but generally plasma works best in the moderate cases in the first 1 week. Somebody who is on a ventilator, after a week or so, plasma, don't put the pressure on the system that I want plasma. Again, plasma is in short supply. Artificially giving plasma to someone who is in 2 weeks old after 2 weeks of disease, now on ventilator, it's not going to benefit in any way. Plasma will work best in moderate cases and in the first 1 week. So the only drug which will work after a week or so is basically the steroids, and some cases tocilizumab, which the doctors will decide on a case-to-case basis when to use it. And at the same time, as I told you, there's no magic potion. Patients will improve, some patients will deteriorate, and the treatment protocols will vary from hospital to hospital, ICU to ICU. So you should not be pressurizing your doctor, as I told you again and again, to administer artificially some drugs which you feel some other doctor would have told you, or somebody is using in some other country or some other place in the country. It is specific to the hospital. The doctors are well trained, and they have been managing these COVID cases for the last 1 year. All the big hospitals are managing they have enough experience with the drug, and all doctors discuss among themselves. So whenever there's a sick patient, doctors do cross consult each other and discuss and try to find out the best possible way to treat a patient. So putting undue pressure on the doctors that so and so consulted from US and give me this prescription, we should use this, will not lead to any improvement. There's no magic drug. It's a wholesome supportive care. Remember, the nurses will be taking care. They will be under intense stress. So they will also be taking care, because they will be under continuously wearing what we call personal protective equipment, PPEs. And with that, working around the clock, it's very difficult. So as patient family members, you should be empathetic to the doctors, to the nurses, and help them in performing to the best of their abilities. And at the same time, there are situations where your loved ones may deteriorate despite the adequate or extensive care that the hospital will be giving. And we all feel that we should be doing our best, but at the same time, there are situations where our best also is not enough for the patient to survive, and we have to accept such situations. So in short, this is what I wanted to tell you about the basic protocol that you should follow and how to help the healthcare system to fight this pandemic. You are a part of the system, and you also should help the healthcare system fight the pandemic in consultation with your physicians and the healthcare staff.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. You really have explained it in a very comprehensive manner, starting from what has led to this current situation and, what are the treatment protocols at home versus hospital. Very informative about that. So we do have few questions, Doctor. You did cover a lot of topics, in terms of management at home versus hospital. So first thing, a very generic question probably a lot of people will have is, now we keep talking about contacts. So who is defined as a contact in context of COVID-19? Say, suppose my family has met with someone last week, and today we got to know that that person is positive. So what should we be worried about, number one? And how do we manage it? Because none of the family members are showing any symptoms. So what do they do at home at that point of time?
See, if you had, thank you. If you had a close contact with a person who turned out to be positive later, especially both of you are without a mask and you are very close contact, speaking to each other, not maintaining social distancing and very close contact, yes, you are a high risk contact there. So basically what you need to do is to isolate yourself, you and your family members, and watch for any symptoms. No need to do testing. There's you need to go and do a test is not required. Testing would be required if there are some symptoms developing. You need to isolate yourself for the next 5 days. Most of the times you will show some symptoms in 5 days. If you don't develop any symptoms in 5 days, it's very unlikely that you will have you can then move out of your isolation. So but some cases, like if you are somebody who is on diabetic, who is uncontrolled diabetes, some cancer patient who is having immunosuppressive drugs, post-transplant immunosuppressive drugs, they have to be kept under more strict observation. If you're a healthy young guy, you've had a contact, next 5 days you isolate yourself, stay alone at home, you don't develop any symptom, talk to your primary physician, and then you can move around after that. If you have any symptoms, definitely you need to test. But as I told you, the subgroup of people who are immunocompromised or immunity is very low, they will look because they may not show many symptoms. So in such cases, even minor symptoms or their isolation may be more, and they may you may test them even if it's minor symptoms.
So just on the same lines, the next question is, what do I do if I suspect a family member has COVID? So only one person is suspected to have COVID. So what do they do at home for that person while caring about themselves?
Yeah, the same rules apply. The person who is suspected to be COVID immediately goes into basically isolation. If it's proven COVID, it's called isolation. If it is not proven, it is quarantine, basically we call it. So if you go into a single room and stay there and watch for any symptoms, be in touch with your primary physician on the phone or on the WhatsApp, whatever methods you have. And if any symptoms develop, do test yourself.
So the next question is, what extra precautions can be taken at home for elderly infected?
Elderly infected?
Yes.
Yeah, that's another area. Yeah, actually, I thought I will cover it in the presentation. Yes. So remember, high risk. There is a subgroup of people who are developing, we would considered for high risk for developing disease, even if they have mild symptom to start off with. People who are more than 60 years old, people who are having heart disease, especially who are having coronary heart disease or had previous heart attacks or got angioplasty, stenting done, or having hypertension or multiple medicines, uncontrolled diabetes, immunosuppressed patients, post-transplant patients, chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease, like we call it cirrhosis. Those patients, post-stroke patients, extreme obesity, morbid obesity patients, they form the high-risk group. So if your family member falls in any of these groups, then they would have to be taken extra precautions. If they are having any symptoms, you better consult with your physician. And these are the patients who would be requiring hospitalization much earlier than other people.
So the next vulnerable population may be, say, suppose there's a lactating mother with asymptomatic symptoms. Can she feed the child and take care of the child?
This question has been debated multiple times. So if the mother is feeding and is positive, I mean, obviously trying to bottle feed would be the best option at the time. But if the child is completely dependent on the mother's breast milk, wearing a proper mask is the way to feed the child. That can be done, yes. But ideally, try to bottle feed. You can express the breast milk also in a bottle and try to feed that. That is possible. It is basically breast milk is not going to infect the baby. It is the contact through your nasal secretions or nasal contact which is going to infect the baby. So distancing is the requirement. So you can feed your baby, you can bottle feed, or you can express the breast milk with a breast pump and feed the baby. That will be safer. But in case the baby wants to breastfeed, it can be done with adequate masking. To the double masking would be ideal for the mother. But do not put any masks on babies. That's very important.
Yeah, that's a very, very important point to note, I guess, Doctor. Thank you for that. Now, we hear a lot about the new variant in Maharashtra, the new variant in West Bengal. So, these, especially for the public who are in these states or who are hearing this, is it that if that patient has this new variant of corona, should that patient be admitted to a hospital and not be at home? Is that something which is recommended, or your comments?
No, how the variant, knowing the variant is a genomic sequencing. I mean, obviously, when you see a patient, you don't, by seeing a patient, no doctor can tell this is a variant COVID or this is a normal, the non-variant one. The admission criteria is not based on the variant mutant, it is based on the clinical condition. If you're breathless, your saturations are dropping, you're not able to do your daily activities, your fever is continuous, going on more than a week, and your cough is increasing, those are indications for hospitalization. It is not a variant or non-variant that you should, the admission order is going to change. That will be subsequently found out whether it's a variant or non-variant. At the present moment, there's no difference in the protocol in treatment between a variant versus non-variant. What we know till now is the variants are more infectious, and some of the variants are basically evading the vaccination. But disease severity wise, still it is debatable whether the variants are more going to cause more serious disease or more fatal disease. That is still under debate. Only we know they're more infectious and some are evading vaccines. The treatment protocol remains the same.
Right. So the next question is: are there any extra precautions when preparing food at home?
I don't understand. Preparing food for
so do we need to follow any extra precautions while you're preparing food at home? I mean, in this COVID time, like sanitization and stuff like that.
I mean, that's as like that. So basically, enough number of studies, data all over the world has shown that transmission through fomites is very, very negligible. So when you are preparing food, you can prepare food normally. Whatever groceries you get from your shop, you just do normal washing, as you previously used to do a thorough washing of your groceries and wash your hands after that. Cooking, whatever our Indian cooking is actually one way good because we most of the times cook in a very high temperatures. So most of the times that doesn't make any difference. Cooking continues normal. Washing of vegetables, groceries will be done. And your hand washing is more important than other things at this time. No need to wear a mask when you're cooking. The virus is not going to jump from the vegetable to your nose. So that doesn't happen. So this is important to understand. You can cook normally. You can do your normal activities. Just wash your hands more frequently. That's the only requirement. And wash your groceries when they come in. Other than that, no major precautions, no special plates required or disposable plates and all this thing. That is absolutely not required. Do normal activities.
Right. So if you're caring for a COVID patient at home, what are the recommendations for cleaning home and other frequently touched surfaces?
You mean the person in the room where the...
yeah, so it's a twofold question. How do that person take care of his or her environment and other family members in the house?
Ideally, if the person who is in isolation, if he is quite okay enough to take care of his or daily activities, he can do the surface wiping of the of his room with 60% alcohol-based rubs. There are a lot of 60% alcohol-based sanitizers which are available. With that, he can clean the doorknobs, the handles, the bed, the tables, and all this. If somebody has to go in, they have to follow the same protocol. Only they have to wear a mask and wear gloves when they're cleaning. You need a 60% alcohol solution or a glutaraldehyde solution to clean all the surfaces. Concept of fumigation is not very clear right now, whether you need to fumigate, but sanitization in the form of thoroughly cleaning the surfaces is what's recommended right now. So any surface which the person would have come in contact should be thoroughly cleaned. That's what's recommended.
So for most of the patients who are at home, who are COVID positive, so it looks like we should be able to manage, symptomatically. So say suppose now when they should be on high alert, okay, what are the 3 things which I should look out for when I should know that immediately I should seek out help? The top 3 things I should watch out for.
Watch out for breathlessness and saturations. If you're feeling breathless, your saturations are dropping less than 95% of room air, yes, your things are looking a little bad. If your fever is continuing more than a week, it's 101 or more continuing, or your cough is getting worse. These 3 things. Plus, if you feel extremely drowsy and lethargic. If you're extremely drowsy and lethargic, not able to get out from the bed, that is also a warning sign that your oxygen levels are dropping. Blue nails also will indicate, but they're actually too late actually to notice blue nails. By that time, you should not be waiting for blue nails. Nowadays, with pulse oximeters easily available, blue nail is a marker of oxygen deficit. So we should be able to pick up oxygen deficits with a pulse oximeter much before your nails turn blue.
So given the excessive demand of beds and how difficult it is to get admission into the hospital, given the numbers, say suppose that the patient does require saturation levels are dropping. So how do we provide respiratory support to the patient at home while you're waiting for admission? What does the family need to do while they're waiting?
Oxygen cylinders and concentrators both are nowadays available. So you have to be in touch with your physician or who will be able to guide you, or in a hospital who will be able to guide you how to get oxygen cylinder at home, and also the available oxygen concentrators which are available at rent. Actually, we are suggesting nowadays all large communities to actually keep oxygen concentrators and oxygen cylinders in their community for people who require it in some such circumstances. So if you're living in a community, your community should keep oxygen cylinders or concentrators as standbys for requirement. That can be available, or else you contact a hospital, nearest hospital, who will be able to help you out in this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajiv. Those are the questions we had for the day. It was a really informative session. I hope the viewers get a good idea about how to manage COVID at home versus what is happening on the hospital front. Thank you so much for that. So please do watch out for our next session tomorrow, the same time. Topic is COVID tests and its accuracy by Dr. Sunita Naredi. She's an infectious diseases specialist at Apollo. But if you do have any more queries for today's topic, please do reach us through the Facebook Messenger or the comment section. Again, take care, be safe. SMS, S for social distancing, M, mask is always on, and S is sanitization. Thank you, and we will look forward to having you again in one more session.
Thank you, Padma.
Thank you.